We are following a breaking story right now as the White House is on lockdown following a shooting outside the building that has left two National Guardsmen in a condition that we do not know yet. But I am going to bring you all of the updates on this breaking story and see how Donald Trump, the man who spent last week threatening the lives of members of Congress, has responded. I want to start with the breaking update from MSNBC and their coverage before we get into what Trump and MAGA is now posting about this shooting. So let's first start with our friends at MSNBC for the breaking update before we get into Donald Trump's response.
Joining us, MS Now Justice and Intelligence reporter Ken Delaney, and along with MS Now National Security and Intelligence analyst and former FBI supervisor Rob D'Amico. So, Ken, what exactly do we know?
Basically just what you said, Katie. This shooting, I'm told, occurred near the White House in a place called Farragut Square in downtown D.C. We're seeing video on social media of police rushing to the scene. I checked in with the Secret Service because they protect the White House and was told that two uniformed National Guard members were involved in a shooting. At least one of them was struck. Their condition is not known. The nature of the incident was not known by this person. It's being handled by the D.C. police, not the Secret Service, because they've decided there's no nexus to the White House, no threat to the White House. So the circumstances of this incident are unclear. Remember, of course, that uniformed National Guard are regularly patrolling the streets of Washington, having been deployed there by President Trump. That's subject to a legal fight. Actually, 5 days ago, a judge ordered the Trump administration to halt that deployment. That's still being litigated. But again, so all we know is that two uniformed National Guard members involved in a shooting, one was struck. The condition of that person is unknown at this time.
Yeah, so the AP is reporting that two National Guard members were struck, the two that were involved. Again, that differs a little bit from our reporting. We'll see if that gets updated. Ken, you were saying that your sources have said there's no nexus. The FBI is saying no nexus. What does that mean?
The Secret Service, meaning there's no investigative, there's no angle for them to investigate this. They've already concluded there was no threat to the White House or the president. It's a shooting that occurred in D.C., and so it's being investigated and responded to by the D.C. police, not by the Secret Service. It remains to be seen. I've also checked in with the FBI. It's unclear at this point whether they will get involved. But right now, the D.C. police is responding, Katie.
All right, so the president is not in Washington right now. He's not at the White House, even though the White House is on lockdown.
Of course, we don't yet know the motive of the assailant at this moment, and details are still coming out. And again, I will try to update those as soon as we have them right now. But it is so striking that we continue to have these moments in our country, and in which public officials feel that their lives are threatened and their decisions have to change. And of course, be beholden to the fear that they feel every day with threats coming against their lives. And although I don't want to make something like this political, it doesn't feel like it is. To think back to a shoot a few short days ago when Donald Trump was threatening very publicly the lives of members of Congress who now have 4-5 times the security they did before. And to see this play out right outside the White House, it is just so incredibly unsettling. Donald Trump, of course, in Florida right now. J.D. Vance is not at the White House. Or I don't believe in D.C. because he is giving out turkeys with his family right now. But after we saw this very devastating breaking news, Donald Trump again, the man who's been making threats all week, took to Truth Social and posted this. Trump wrote on Truth Social, the animal that shot the two National Guardsmen, with both being critically wounded and now in two separate hospitals, is also severely wounded, but regardless will pay a very steep price. God bless our great National Guard and all of our military and law enforcement. These are truly great people. I, as President of the United States and everyone associated with the office of the presidency, am with you. This just feels like a very weird message from Donald Trump. The undertone to me is still just, I'm so powerful, and I'm in charge, and we're gonna go after everybody. And of course, there should be fucking accountability. It's not even a question. But after Donald Trump spent the week threatening members of Congress, and he continued to threaten members of Congress, it just kind of falls flat to me. And I'm still very uncomfortable with any tweet that I see come out from Donald Trump at this point. Before I even start to read it, I worry about whose life is going to be put in danger. This is, of course, a man who didn't say a word after the death, the assassination of Melissa Hortman. Of course, Donald Trump acknowledged it. He didn't call Tim Walz. He didn't wish her family well. He didn't even think twice. And he just moved on. And this is an administration that for, what is it, 2 months now, has been threatening and attacking and trying to intimidate progressives, liberals, Democrats in Congress, Democratic organizations, saying that if we didn't erect monuments to Charlie Kirk, he would bring the hammer down on us. And I don't want to make this moment about what Donald Trump has said in the past. But if we don't ever talk about it, I don't know how we're gonna fix it. Call it out or right this ship of political rhetoric from the right that produces political violence. And it's just the truth. And so whenever this happens, it's immediately where my head goes to. And how could it not, again, after Donald Trump has been threatening members of Congress? It is the only thing that you can think about. And the right still decides that they're gonna make themselves the victims in all of these scenarios. And again, not to be too in the weeds with, like, I don't want to call it digging up old Trump shit, but this is still the same guy who sicked his thugs on Capitol Police officers who are currently responding to this shooting right now. So, I think it must be tough for those men and women to respond to say that Donald Trump has their back, that he's got them, when he pardoned the very people who beat them to an inch of their lives. And it might not feel pertinent to this current discussion, but it does to me to just think back on the actual rhetoric used by the right and the ways that they have tried to intimidate, cause I just can't get past it, and I can't. And to see shooting DC in my head, as I'm sure when you clicked on this video, immediately went to, and what did Donald Trump post? None of those words evoke anything that would make you calm or feel like you will be reassured. And it's tough for us to continue to live in this place where political violence keeps happening. It is encouraged, excused, and laughed at by the right, by Donald Trump. It is blamed on the left. And we just have to keep moving forward. And then he does it again. And for me, it again, like, I don't want to just make this moment, and we are all praying that, though the conditions are unknown of these two National Guardsmen, that of course, they make a full recovery. But it's hard for your head to even stay at that place when you know that this is going to just happen again soon, that there has been nothing done to address the epidemic of gun violence, to talk about political violence in any real meaningful way that isn't just an attempt to make Charlie Kirk a martyr. And so, yeah, when I saw that Trump had posted something, I just didn't even want to look at it, because that's the place that we're in with our president. And I just can't get over the fact that this is a week, that this is days after these death threats that Mark Kelly has been calling out.
And that was that members of the military should follow the law. And in response to that, Donald Trump said, I should be executed. I should be hanged. I should be prosecuted. He even went on and said something about go get them. I guess sending a mob to round me and the other folks up. So this is, I think it says a lot more about him than it says about me. He doesn't want accountability. But Rachel, I'm not going to be silenced. I'm not going to be intimidated.
When you and your colleagues made that video, were there specific, potentially illegal orders that you were thinking about that were the sort of precipitating cause for you guys to get together and do that?
Here's the thing, Rachel. You don't want to wait for your kid to get hit by a car before you tell them to look both ways. It's pretty simple. And if you go back to 2016, Donald Trump on a debate stage talking about, some action that he was going to take. He was reminded by the moderator that that would be illegal, that the military wouldn't be able to follow those orders. And his response, Donald Trump's response was the military would not refuse my orders. And then as president, he talked about shooting people, citizens of this country, in the legs, protesters. Now, thankfully, Mark Esper, Mark Milley, explained to him that that would be not be a good idea. Now he's talking about the Insurrection Act, sending troops to more cities, using U.S. cities. And as training grounds and U.S. citizens for training of the United States military. So, Rachel, we wanted to do something pretty simple here. We wanted to just remind folks that they need to comply with the law and be reminded, and also explain to members of the military that we have their backs, that we know what's going on as part of our job, accountability over the federal government. And this is the response we get. He told the world that we should be hanged.
I wanted to ask you about that pledge, that we have your backs. It's sort of the apex of that piece, that video that you made with your colleagues. What does that mean in practical terms? If I'm an enlisted service member somewhere, maybe I'm serving in Southern Command, maybe I'm asked to do something that I believe is illegal or that I have received advice might be illegal. If those service members are thinking about you right now as being on their side, as having their back, what does that mean in practical terms about what that service member can do when faced with a potentially illegal order from the commander-in-chief and from the chain of command?
Well, Rachel, I spent 25 years in the United States Navy. I flew 39 combat missions over Iraq and Kuwait. Let me start by saying I never questioned any order. And you're required to follow all legal orders. You're also required not to follow illegal ones. And I think most people can figure out, just take some common sense in what would be an illegal order. But I think it's important for people to know that they need to be able to stand up and speak out. And I wanted them to know that members of Congress understand that this president doesn't seem to care about the Constitution, the rule of law. And I have to say, I don't think there's anything more patriotic than standing up for the Constitution.
The intimidation that is so rampant in our politics is unsettling, doesn't even meet the moment of how disturbing it is. And that's why I want to make this video, because I'm just still so unsettled, and I know I should have the words if I'm going to talk about something. But I just think that the feeling I have today is that I wonder how we get out of this. And I don't think it's wrong to want to revisit all that Donald Trump has said, especially in the past week. And when we talk about what needs to change and be fixed and done away with in our politics. And we're going to keep talking about that on this show. If you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. Leave a like on this video. If you stuck around at the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. We're praying for a speedy recovery for those 2 National Guardsmen. We're going to keep you all updated, of course. Until next time, I'll see you soon.